All right, so if you're building AI agents that need to browse the web, you've probably run into this big question. Should I use Playwright CLI or Playwright MCP? Now, they both get the job done, but they are built on two totally different philosophies. It's kind of like one gives your AI a set of super precise tools, while the other just hands it a blurry map and hopes for the best. So let's dive in and figure out which one is actually the right choice for building smart, capable web agents.
But first, let's talk about a problem that I'm sure feels familiar. You can have the most powerful, cutting-edge AI model on the planet, but when you give it a long, complex task on a website, it just gets lost. It gets confused, it forgets what it was doing. So what's going on? Why do these brilliant AI minds seem to have such a hard time online?
Well, a huge part of the answer comes down to this one key idea: context exhaustion. Think of it this way. Imagine your AI's short-term memory is like a tiny little notepad. Now, imagine that every single time it takes an action, like clicking a button, someone drops a full encyclopedia on top of that notepad. That original to-do list, it's going to get buried fast. And that is exactly what's happening to our AI agents.
And this is where our two main characters enter the story. To solve this problem, the Playwright world gives us two tools. But as you'll see, they're not just two different sets of commands. They represent two completely different philosophies for how an AI should talk to a browser. It goes way beyond the code. It's about the entire approach to interaction.
The best way to think about it is vision versus tools. On one hand, you've got Playwright MCP. Its whole deal is to give the AI vision by just sending it the entire blueprint of the web page every single time. The hope is the AI can kind of see what's going on. But then you have the Playwright CLI, which takes a totally different route. It gives the AI tools, specific, precise commands that get direct, simple feedback. It's the difference between describing a car engine in painful detail versus just handing the AI the keys.
So let's throw these two into the ring and see what happens. We'll call this the fire hose versus the scalpel. We're going to look at how each one handles a super simple task, and you'll see right away where the differences really start to pop.
First up is the MCP approach, and we're calling this the fire hose for a very good reason, as you're about to see. The whole idea here is to give the agent a fire hose of information, the complete picture of the web page, no matter what.
So here's the play-by-play. The agent says, hey, I want to click that login button. The action happens in the browser, no problem. But then the browser responds by sending back the entire page structure, every single element. And the result? The agent's memory, that little notepad, is instantly buried under thousands and thousands of tokens of what the source material calls UI noise, completely drowning out its original goal.
Okay, so that was the fire hose. Now let's see how the other side does it with the command line interface, or CLI. This is what we're calling the precision approach, the scalpel, and it's all about lean, mean efficiency. Here, the agent doesn't describe what it wants. It acts like a surgeon. It issues a direct, precise command. The action gets done, and the response from the browser? It's not an encyclopedia. It's just a simple success. Done. The agent's memory gets a tiny little update using just a few tokens, leaving all that precious space for the actual mission. Let's really break this down side by side. The MCP is basically a context hog. It sends back the full page structure and forces the poor agent to try and manage the session state in its own already crowded memory. It's really designed for just exploring a page. But the CLI, our lean specialist, only sends back exactly what's needed. And crucially, it lets the browser manage the state, which is where it belongs. Its focus is on one thing: generating clean code to get things done.
And if you want to see what this looks like in practice, well, the numbers are just staggering. For every single action, MCP is burning through thousands of tokens. The CLI, just tens of tokens. This isn't some small optimization, you guys. This is an absolutely massive difference that determines if your agent can do a 3-step task or a 30-step one.
So what's the bottom line here? What's the verdict? When it comes to building these modern autonomous agents, what everyone's calling agentic workflows, this kind of efficiency isn't just a nice little bonus. It is, quite literally, everything.
So why is the CLI really pulling ahead here? Well, first, it's built from the ground up to generate clean, native code. But most importantly, it flat out prevents context exhaustion, which means your agent can take on much longer, more complex jobs. It's also a perfect fit for this new generation of skill-based agents that work best with precise tools. And as a bonus, it handles things like logins and sessions reliably all by itself.
You know, there's a quote from the source material that just hits the nail on the head. It says, "The CLI treats the AI like a pilot with a cockpit full of precise instruments. The MCP, on the other hand, treats the AI like an observer who's been handed a blurry, oversized map and just told to, figure it out."
And let's just double-click on that code generation benefit for a second, because this is a big deal. Because the CLI uses Playwright's native engine, the code it writes is super robust. It doesn't break easily when a website changes a little bit. The output is clean and logical, not something hallucinated from a giant mess of text. And all of this means lower latency, a faster, snappier agent that can act and react way more quickly.
Okay, so after all of that, what does this actually mean for you? When you sit down to start your next project, how do you make the right call? Let's lay out a super simple blueprint.
Look, the takeaway here is pretty straightforward. You're going to want to use Playwright CLI if your goal is a high-performance agent that can run for a long time and needs to generate clean, reliable code. The only time you should really think about Playwright CLI is if you're stuck inside a specific client that demands it and your main goal is digging into the guts of a web page, not actually getting things done efficiently.
So at the end of the day, the crucial point is this. As our AI models get better and better at actually using tools, the architecture we choose for them matters more than ever. And for building autonomous agents that don't just see, but act, and can turn those actions into solid code, the precision of the CLI is simply the more robust and scalable path forward.
And that really leaves us with one last big question. If an approach like the CLI is basically giving our AI agents a pair of precise digital hands to work with, what comes next? What kind of incredible, complex, and powerful tools are we going to be able to build for these agents tomorrow?